Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. My name is Justin Young. This is episode 42 for April 7th, 2023. Joining me, as always, are Alicia Utecht and Ryan Freels. OJ Duncan is off in the ether somewhere, but he'll be back eventually, we assume.
We hope.
Yeah, we hope. We actually hope that OJ will return at some point.
He's doing battle with the strangers from paradise.
He's off fighting chaos.
OJ's always battling chaos, let's be honest.
You're not wrong.
They are fighting chaos in our name, and we love them.
Alicia, Ryan, how have things been? We've been off for 2 weeks now, so how have things been going?
It's a little stressful. It's that time of the semester. But it could be worse.
It is always that time of the semester.
Yeah. Well, I have, a full 30 pages-ish that I have to write before Monday at 11:59 p.m., so it's fine. I'm fine. But in good news, my sister is coming down to town tonight. Well, technically her plane lands at 12:16 a.m. in St. Louis, so she's not actually going to be here until 2 a.m. But
so is that going to be a distraction from getting your 30 pages written?
I mean, yes, but
a positive distraction?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We're at that time of the semester where my mental health actually does kind of take a dip, so, and with the holiday weekend and all, I was having a rough time being here alone and
away from family. It's hard around holiday weekends to be away from family, especially big ones like, Arbor Day. It's rough to be away from family when it comes to Arbor Day, but, slightly less below that comes Easter and Christmas, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So those are rough times to not be with family.
Yeah. And it's not the first time I've been away from my family for it, but just other things going on have kind of compounded it. So
sure,
it worked out really well that my sister has enough PTO that it won't roll over all of it. So she needs to take time off. So she's going to be coming down and staying through Tuesday, which will be really nice.
It'll definitely be nice. And if worse comes to worse, you give her half the pages to write. You write the other half. And hope nobody notices that you sound like an insane person. Just switching tone and voice.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely an option. I don't know how viable that option is, but that's an option.
Ryan, how have you been?
I've been good. It's that time of the semester, Justin. I mean, it has been for me just because I'm working on my dissertation. So it was kind of that time of the semester when it began. But I'm getting progress done, and also the Owl House, my favorite show to ever exist since Neon Genesis Evangelion, is having its last episode this weekend, and it's bittersweet. I think they did a beautiful job of, despite being canceled and having to rush it, of making it all look like it flowed perfectly, like it doesn't feel or look rushed or anything. It to me, not in the sense that there's no such thing as a perfect piece of media, but to the point that I'd still give it a 10 out of 10 rating, and I absolutely love the show, and it's bittersweet because I'm glad that I'm getting to see it go to a conclusion and honestly say it's just one of the best shows I've ever seen. I'm also just kind of sad to see it end, though. So the Owl House is about to end, and it's beautiful and sad all at once.
Yeah, I think whenever you have a beloved TV show, it's always because you spend years with a TV show. It's different than a film, right? Mm-hmm. Or a film you go see and it's over, and maybe you're looking forward to sequels and stuff. But with a TV show, you invest a huge amount of time over years into those characters and those storylines. And then when it comes to an end, there is a real feeling of loss that I think happens for people. And even if it ends perfectly, even if it has the best ending you can imagine, you're like, oh, well, these people are out of my lives. And they have sort of become my friends or people I'm rooting for. And I worry about these people and think about them outside of the context of even the show, right? That you think about we have done this, obviously, talk about, well, what do we think will happen next with this? And so I think that's, I'm sure that has been written about extensively, but I think that's a probably really unique psychological reaction.
Oh yeah, like the identification, like especially when it's like an animated TV show where I go through the characters and like an experience a place with them. The places you go through with them, they're not like I wrote about this like in a paper once for a class, but like they're not just like places you saw on a screen. They are places you remember visiting very vividly, and they are a part of your memories. And you know that, it's a mediated construction, but you also like feel it just as visceral and just as real as like any place you've actually been. And when you deeply identify with a character, like there's characters who's like queer and neurodivergent identity, or their neuroqueer identities, I have so like deeply resonated with that it's like their memories become a part of your memories. And it's just, the show has been a beautiful experience. I'd actually like recommend like anybody who's like, because I know we know we've talked about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. To anybody that's experienced that and like kind of wants another magical show with like the school setting and its own narrative to go with, this is like a show I've wholeheartedly recommended because it has non-binary characters and characters that are at least, if not directly stated to be trans, like, are, can be coded as trans in some way. And it's just, and the LGBTQ representation is at the forefront. It's not something you hear about later. It's already there. The main character is bi and has a girlfriend, and she has a girlfriend, and I'm going to miss the show so much. I'm going to revisit it, but
it's not a show where 3 years after it ends, the creator says, "Oh, by the way, this character was gay. That was always my headcanon."
No, I mean, we might get that later for all we know, but even if we do, we actually had that too, like,
right,
from the beginning. Like,
it's not retractive representation; it's present there already from the process of the series. Like,
the beginning of the third season had the main character. So the main character, her name is Luce, and her girlfriend's name is Amity, and like the fan nickname for their couple was Lumity. So like at the beginning of the third episode, it's her coming out to her mom, and she does it through like a little video presentation, and it starts off with Lumity Productions, like the fan given name for them, and then it has multiple pictures of them like in each other's arms and just kind of being sweet and cute, and like, and then it has a slide that just says, "Hi, I'm bi," and it's her holding the bi pride flag. And her mom like hugs her in a loving embrace. Like, it's tearful, it's sweet, but it's also like, and I can see, and it's just very sincere too.
Right.
And like, you have a non-binary character that explicitly uses, they don't ever like say this character's non-binary, but they use they them pronoun throughout. And you have another non-binary character who has like the non-binary pride colors like as fingernail polish and has a they them name tag like at their workplace, and it's glorious. I love it so much, and it's not just it's good represent, and it's just in a super well written show too. Like, the main couple in it, like Luce and Amity, they don't just like, they're not friends, and at the very end, they get a kiss and they're a couple. No, they start off as enemies. It's like, think about if Harry and Draco at the beginning, but instead, what if they were like, we think each other's cute, and we kind of like each other. No, it's, think of that. So they progress from enemies to friends to realizing they have feelings for each other to becoming a couple, and then you actually see them go through some motions as a relationship, and you actually get to see a queer relationship progress throughout the show.
I would tell you that there is plenty of fan fiction of Draco and Harry looking at each other and saying, "Hey, we kind of like each other."
I'm aware of that, but to see it like within the central piece of media from which the fan media comes from, like, do it itself is so. And not saying that I don't believe in doing like the canon thing where saying that the original piece of media is the most important one. I think all pieces of media that come from it are also relevant, but to see like it not just be written by fans, but the thing from the fan media is coming from itself, it's beautiful.
All right. That's Owl House. That's on Disney Plus streaming.
Oh, right? Yeah. It's worth it. Please give it your attention to anyone that's listening. It is like one of my favorite pieces of media of all time. It's up there with Evangelion and Moused by Art Spiegelman and If Found, a video game I've talked about on here. And music by Nirvana for me. So
All right. Well, let's move into.
Wait, Justin, how are you? We haven't
How
asked you in a
are
while.
you, Justin? Let's really get in there. Talk about your feelings. Welcome to Dr. Phil. We're talking to Justin here.
I'm okay. It's it is starting to get to be that time of the semester and everything, and you have instead of 4 or 5 balls that you're juggling, 10 or 20 that you're juggling. So I'll be happy when the next couple of weeks are over. Things should calm down quite a bit. But outside of that, I've just mostly been dealing with. I'm getting new windows installed in my house, which is one of those adult things that is just the most boring and depressing thing you can possibly imagine.
That sounds like an Apple advertisement.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things that just feels completely boring and disinteresting. And it's been more of a headache than it should have been. And just rescheduling on their part. So I will be very happy when that is over with and I don't have to deal with that anymore. And hopefully new windows that are nice and don't have any problems will be the outcome. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Let's move into what you've been playing. Alicia, what have you been playing?
So I finally got to turn my Switch on for the first time in like a month because Faramir has finally started to settle down and like go in his little window alcove when I'm home long enough.
Alicia, I'm laughing like this because I relate to this as you talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love having a kitten. It's amazing. It has done wonders for my mental health. He's a little chaos demon.
Oh, I can't do wired controllers, and I have a full-grown cat, because if they see a controller with a wire on it, they're messing with it.
Yeah. Oh, no, I haven't dared try to hook up the Switch to the TV. I'm just playing it handheld. But so I actually went out and got Power Wash Simulator finally.
Okay.
Really because I wanted the Final Fantasy VII stuff, but I'm like, I can't jump straight to that. I need to play the normal game first.
You need to build up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, here's the problem. I know everybody's always like, oh, it's so satisfying, it's so relaxing and all that. And it is on the one hand. But on the other hand, I spent 4 summers working at AR North America, which manufactures and sells power washers and pressure washers for all purposes, residential, industrial, agricultural, all of that. And so, as nice and relaxing as this game is on the one hand, on the other hand, I'm sitting here like, you are not giving me the technical specs of this power washer. Am I using a residential power washer for industrial work? I should not be doing that. What's the PSI? What's the GPM? Do I have a soap nozzle? Like, I need this information.
Alicia, I love that we've established this as a super relaxing game, and you're like, no, this is stressing me out.
It kind of does though, because I'm like,
no, I get that.
Like, if you're using something with too high of pressure, then you start etching in real life, if you're using too high a pressure, you're etching the material. So when I have to get up because Faramir's crawling through wires and I just leave the power washer running, I'm like, every time I have a minute of, oh crap, it's going to start etching the material and I'm going to get docked pay.
Actually was listening to somebody talk about playing it, and they were so into it, and they were like, oh, this is so good. They went out and bought a power washer. And to test it, they sprayed it on their driveway. They were going to clean their driveway anyway.
Yeah.
And so they sprayed it on their driveway, and they had the power up too high, and they said it just took a little small chunk out of their driveway, and they were like, okay, I'm putting this away. I obviously don't know what I'm doing. This is nothing like I thought it was from the game.
Yeah, like it'll etch and scratch materials if you're not using the right nozzles. It'll mess up. Don't use an extension cord, please, for the love of God. You can tell I worked with the residential customer service for 4 summers. Don't use an extension cord. You are not supposed to use an extension cord. Plug it directly into the wall. It will void the warranty if you use an extension cord. And for the love of God, please don't ever run your power washer dry. Always have it hooked up to water.
Is running it with an extension cord because it's not getting a consistent stream of electricity over an extension cord? Is that the problem?
I think it's something to do with the amount of electricity. I never actually took phone calls. I never actually did customer service. I did more order entry and answering emails for very specific customers on the industrial side. So I can't necessarily tell you the reason why these are the rules. I can just tell you that they are the rules.
Well, I mean, I know that like there's the same issue with a space heater, right? Like you're not supposed to use an extension cord with space heaters and stuff. So
yeah, I feel like that's the answer. I just don't want to say that it is and then have my coworkers who are now listening to this be like, Alicia, really? You're wrong.
You went through training and everything. You should know better than that.
I never did. I worked there because my mom does customer service for the industrial side. And so when I would come home for the summer, I would come in and work with her. So I never had training. I mean, I was trained on like how to put in orders in the system, but
sure,
I never had customer service training. I can't tell you the actual reason why things are. I joked out at the end of the first summer, I was like, I can tell you all the responses. I don't know what questions prompt those responses, but I can tell you what everybody says as their answers.
So the most relaxing game imaginable. I believe that game won our chillaxing game of the year.
I think it did.
And is not actually very relaxing to you because you're very concerned about the details.
When I put it out of my head, it's relaxing. But I just always have those little flashes, like I said, when Faramir's being naughty and I have to set down the switch and get up and go chase him off the counters or whatever, and I forget to shut the water off, I'm like, oh no, it's gonna etch the building.
So the kitten that you got to relax and the video game.
Oh no, I didn't get him to relax. I just got him to help my mental health, not to relax.
I like that those aren't necessarily the same thing. I agree with you, by the way. I have the same feeling with my cat. But.
And the video game that you got to relax, like all these things that you got to relax or to help with your mental health are actually like problematic in combination
just
with one another.
Just adding more stress to my life.
But in combination, right? Like on their own, they'd be fine. But like you put them together and like they create this vortex of just stress for you.
Today on Dr. Phil, we talk about Alicia struggling to relax.
Yeah, I think, it is a great game though. I am enjoying it. I am enjoying it is very much something I can just pick up and play and put down and walk away. So yeah. That's really nice versus, like I said, I haven't turned my Switch on for a month, so I've missed a bunch of special raid events in Pokemon Violet, and I'm just like, well, that sucks. But like this, I feel like I'm never going to miss anything.
Hey, you're dealing with your real life Pokemon right now, so.
Yeah, I feel like this is, that was one of the things I really enjoyed about the game was it was a game I could play for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and sit down and come back 2 days later and I hadn't lost anything. I hadn't forgotten where I was or anything. You just picked right back up.
And Alicia just ruined that for you because now you're going to be like, how's this going to work? I'm kidding.
I mean, it doesn't affect me at all.
I would say it's not ingrained in Justin's brain the way it is in mine.
So I can still play it and relax. But, that's interesting. That's an interesting reaction to the game, right? Like, that's the sort of reaction that I'm very used to people having with films, right? Like you watch a movie about something that you know an awful lot about, and it will often kind of take you out of the movie because little details that they get wrong, right? But video games is kind of interesting because, usually when we think about a video game as being an actual recreation of something, you're thinking more like sim type things like, like the Forza series or Gran Turismo for cars, where you're like, well, car people may understand that they got a detail wrong, but the whole point is to try to get these details as much right as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and other games like Pokemon or Kirby aren't based in reality in any way, so we don't even worry about those. But, something like this is kind of interesting that it would create that same sort of taking you out of the game experience for you.
And again, it's very easy to get back into the game experience. I just, the first time I turned it on, I was like, oh, pressure washer am I using? And I'm like, hang on. This is a residential model. I shouldn't be using this for my job. I should be getting an industrial model. So like that was the first thing. As soon as I had enough money, I was like, I'm upgrading my pressure washer. I'm not worrying about any extension wand or any of that for that first one. I'm getting an industrial pressure washer.
Well, you do start off in very residential work and move on to more industrial work.
But the minute you're cleaning a house, like cleaning the car, yeah, sure, you can use a residential one. But the amount of work you do even on that very first house, I'm like, this should be an industrial pressure washer.
But don't you
Wild
start
that a video game podcast has gone in this direction. I just want to point that out for a moment.
But you start like in the backyard, right? Like before you do the actual house. Maybe you don't.
I mean,
I
you
forget
have
the order of the levels.
the option. There's stuff on that first house that you do. There's stuff in the backyard and on the actual house.
Okay.
So like,
maybe I'm just forgetting the order.
Yeah.
So that might be the issue. I know at one point you do like the landscaping of a backyard with like a deck and pond and stuff.
Yep,
like,
that is the first house. You do like the landscaping but you also have to do like the wall of the house and all that. And I'm like, this is so much work. It should be an industrial pressure washer.
Well, you're an entrepreneur. Like you couldn't afford the industrial. Like you had to start off small.
But that's how you void your warranty. You use residential ones when you're supposed to be doing industrial, and you void the warranty.
Hey, listen, narc. You don't have to like tell your company.
Too late. I told my mom, and she emailed them all.
Today we talk about ethical business practices.
All right. Anything else, Alicia?
That's been the big one for me. I did finally also open up Pokemon Go again, so I've been playing a little bit of that, but not as much. And I'm looking now at, I think that's what's draining my phone battery so fast. So I'm like, yeah, this is probably why I didn't play it as much for a hot minute there. So it's mostly been Power Wash Sim.
Okay. Ryan, how about you?
So I have, the main thing I've just done is like, I've just played more of The Last of Us, and I'm kind of getting it through slowly because of other work, but I got past the part where you, now it's just Joel with Ellie, and I just got past the part recently. The main thing was with his brother's help. So that's how far I've gotten in that. I think I got a little farther than that. I think because I've also been in the car, and we got past an incident with some people trying to hunt you for parts and stuff. But that's,
now, when you say hunt you for parts, you mean parts of the car or parts of the humans?
yes.
Okay.
I think for like clothes
at different
and supplies
points, it's
and
different
stuff.
things. So
I think it's clothes and supplies. If organs were being harvested or anything, I don't know. It was pretty bleak.
Was that Pittsburgh? I think where all that happens.
I think so.
Yeah.
But so there's not much for me to so much add that I haven't already said that wouldn't like spoil the story for, all the people that haven't played it since it came out like me. But I do want to say like the storytelling has continued to be like very powerful, very beautiful. Like I'm really looking forward to seeing Joel's brother in the TV series when I watch it. Because I think it's supposed to be around then that's like when I remember seeing people like critically like applauding it and loving on it. But the story to like how different his brother was since when you first met him. Like not that like we knew that much when we first met him, but like he seemed like a pretty likable guy when he first, and immediately he's just like this super paranoid, like fairly hateful personality, but for understandable reasons, like, living in survival mode. And just the storytelling has continued to be beautiful. I really love seeing how like Joel and Ellie are warming up to each other, like, but it's also very gradual. Like, we've now seen like Joel and Ellie, like Ellie will start like reading like bad puns and jokes, and you'll be hearing Joel respond to them. And like you have that moment where like they're trying to get the car started, and because so like they go to Joel's brother so that they can get a car, so that they can drive, so that they can move faster. And when they do get to the vehicle, and when they do try to start it, you have that moment where Joel just like stops and tells Ellie, "Hey, just by the way, you're doing a really good job." And these two have like been like very bitter around each other, not very much liking each other, but you've been kind of seeing them warm up to each other, and it's that big moment that doesn't feel like it goes out of nowhere. It feels like it's built up to. It feels earned. And aside from that, I still love like the rewards for exploring places, and it's not necessarily just the rewards of finding like cool things like more ammo or something. Like that part's not exciting, but just being rewarded with more storytelling, like finding notes. Like I think one point when I was exploring a house that I could have just ignored a lot of, I went ahead and went into a room, and you find the journal of a kid that lived there, and you see bits about how his parents are fighting. You see like them, talking about their disagreements. You see like a very like really heart-wrenching part about like they're going to a place where animals aren't allowed, and they just let the dog go on its own, and they're like, so what? And the boy talks about the dad trying to rationalize them, like, well, the dog's a wild animal; it's going to be where it's happiest, and the boy knows that that's not true. Right. And like that if you're a dog or animal lover of any kind, like that part like rips your heart out. But I just love the way they weave storytelling into this. Like whether you're talking about looking at your environment, whether you're talking about the things that you find in your environment.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I think the series does a good job of showing that growth of their relationship. But one of the things that it does lose that the game has is just how much longer the game has to develop that relationship. Right. And so those little moments, those little asides, they do carry over quite a bit of that, but there's just not as much of it, right. So it's like you're taking a lot of that and everything. So like I don't think this is a spoiler, but like the stuff you mentioned about the puns, right? Like that's right. Carried over into the television series, but you're not getting it as much, and you're not getting it as spaced out in the way that you do in the game. And so, I think that's part of what makes it a different experience. As good as the TV show is, as good as a job it does, it can't inherently not be a different experience.
Right.
Because of that.
And I think that's fine and fair. I think like I'm not like one of those people that's like, oh, this, like reading is the best medium. There's nothing good as a book. I don't like, first off, and that's not me dissing people that love like reading or books, by the way. That's awesome. I love a good book too. But I do get frustrated when people try to say like, this is the best medium for anything. Because I think
it's the elitism behind it.
Yeah. Like when people are like, well, you can get more depth out of a book. I guess if you're not watching a movie and looking at the cinematography and mise en scene, the editing, the nuances and performances, and I don't think those things make movies better than books, by the way. I just don't like the idea of saying one medium is better than the other. And I think it's fine to say that The Last of Us, the video game, and the TV show are going to have their own like beauties to them that not one can really take from the other, but they're both their own valuable experiences. And I'm saying this not having watched the TV show, but based on what I've already heard, I feel like this is this is how I'm going to feel once I've taken in both pieces of media.
Well, by the nature of the medium, it should be a different experience, right? Like, I mean, you think about something like Pokemon. Well, okay, Pokemon's an anime series. That's fine. But the video game should be a different experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it was simply recreating the anime,
why bother?
Well, not even just why bother, but like also you're not even embracing the medium and what makes it distinctly different, right? So yes, a novel tends to be, more in depth, right? There's more space than in a 2-hour film to explore ideas and concepts. Okay, but like then it also doesn't have acting in it that a film does, right? It also doesn't have a musical score that a film does. It also, as you noted, it doesn't have cinematography.
Right.
So there are trade-offs.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing I think people like overlook when they want to be elitist or, get on a high horse about one medium versus another. It's like, no, they're all good in distinct ways. And the media that's being produced for them, the content that's being produced should embrace those unique qualities.
Well, there are definitely stories that are better suited to one medium than another. Lord of the Rings is best suited to a book, and that's with the original Lord of the Rings trilogy being fantastic. Like, it is. But the stories are still best suited to a book. And that doesn't mean that books are always the best thing to do. You know, a lot of Disney movies are best suited to film. You know, it's...
Well, and yeah, I mean, but you could tell the story of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah, you absolutely could. But just the way that they make a Disney film, like you said, you need the songs, you need a lot of stuff that a book is not going to have.
And I think, like, there are, like, attempts to do a live action. I say live action-ish because there's also plenty of CGI going on to where it's, like, partially animated, partially live action. I think their attempts to do, like, live action versions kind of have shown, like, or ish versions have shown, like, how you can lose, like, something from another medium, like how animation fit those stories very well. Like, I think, I mean, we can argue about whether musicals are, I'm not going to say musicals should always be animated or that they're best that way, but, like, you know, it kind of shows you what Howard Ashman, like the guy who wrote the lyrics for a lot of the, you know, the Disney Renaissance films at the beginning, said, like, how animation was so well suited to musicals. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, as we see these live action, at least in the Disney takes, and these live action versions, like, a lot of the soul of those movies feels, like, lost in the live action ones. That's my feeling anyway. I'm not about to go in a deep analysis. That would take a long time.
That's a whole nother conversation.
But, yeah, I mean, I think those Disney adaptations are at their best when they don't try to be a, like, shot-for-shot remake in live action. Yeah. I think when they allow themselves to go off and do something unique and take a different perspective. So, like,
Cinderella was the only good one because it wasn't trying to remake the 1952 cartoon. It was just doing the Cinderella story.
See, I think Pete's Dragon is the best one.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
And I think that's the best one because it's the one that's the furthest from the original material. Mm-hmm. They took the basic concept and then just ran in an entirely different direction with it.
Yeah,
and that's respectable, I think.
Yeah,
but I get what you're saying about Cinderella because they do a pretty good job with that as well.
Well, and I think we're saying the same thing here because like I say Cinderella's the best one for that versus like Beauty and the Beast. There's so many ways that you can adapt the story of Beauty and the Beast into live action, but instead of trying to adapt the story of Beauty and the Beast, they adapted the Disney cartoon Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
and so like that's where I think, like Ryan was saying, it ends up feeling just kind of dead.
Right. And like I think Lindsay Ellis, like if anybody's like watched her like YouTube video essays, I think she did like a really good job of explaining why that movie failed, and because that movie was so like was just going over backwards trying to explain itself, and like was kind of like and trying to explain away fan nitpicks about the original movie or criticisms, and it was doing so like in like a really like just dauntingly frustrating way where it was just bogging down the movie, slowing it down, kind of taking the heart out of it. And like in some cases, like in trying to fix things and make them better, kind of making them worse. Like,
yeah. Well, not to get too much more off track and off topic. Ryan, anything else you've been playing?
Just mainly The Last of Us, and I've told you what I've been loving about that. That I can see that being among my favorite games of all time. The only other thing I've really played to note, like aside from like Marvel Snap, there's nothing to add to that. If anything, I'm just kind of starting to get tired of Marvel Snap, and I'm kind of going to where I'm going with Days without playing it and stuff. But that's not because it's a bad game. Just I've played it a lot now, and it's stayed its welcome for me. But I tried out a little bit of Super Mario Land 2 on the emulation thing because there's the gaming historian, to anybody that watches them on YouTube, did like some videos on the Mario games on the Game Boy, and I'd always been kind of curious to try them as well as the Wario games. Mm-hmm. I just want to say like I probably played as much of this game as I want to now because and this is nothing against side-scrolling platformers. I get why those are beautiful games. I've just never been good at them. But I will say I like the charm of this, like how this isn't just like, okay, let's just do this for the Game Boy. You can tell they cared a lot about the level design. And like there's like some interesting monster designs going on in here. Like I think there was like a bull cowfish thing or something. And there's like a pig creature that shoots like a cannonball out of its snout, and and I like the level design of like I think there was like an area where like there's like, and I played similar things in other sides like Mario games, but like where there's like the skew stuff at the top and the bottom, and you're trying to like navigate yourself around that, like trying to get stuck in the goo, but just long enough to where it doesn't trip you up into spikes and stuff. And trying to figure out like, because that helps you, but it can also hurt you if you don't know how to move around in it. But just like long story short, is like I like the side-scrolling game design, and I like how it feels like its own unique experience, not just well, here's Mario on the Game Boy. Like there's a reason to play this still today. Like even with like the other Mario games being easily accessible on the same device. Is it going to be my cup of tea? Is it going to be the thing I play for a long time? No, but I think it was just nice to stop and appreciate what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think those Mario games hold up still pretty well. I think actually the weirdest one, and it actually might make it hold up even better than the rest, is the original Mario Land, which isn't on the Game Boy emulation yet. And it's just so bizarre. It's the most bizarre Mario platformer that they ever made. And for that reason, it may actually hold up the best, because you go back to and you're like, well, this is really weird. This doesn't feel like a stripped down Mario game at all. This feels like somebody made a completely different game. And
Mario's here.
Yeah. I mean, it's the closest to like Doki Doki Panic, Super Mario 2, and just feeling like a completely unique Mario experience.
That's what I was thinking when you said that, because like I remember enjoying that, but I'm like, this is such a weird game in the series.
Yeah, definitely. All right. If that's everything, then I'll jump in here real quick. I'm going to try to run through a few different games that I've been playing. I've been still playing Dead Cells Return to Castlevania, which has gotten me into buying lots of Dead Cells DLC, which is a disease. It's a sickness. Help me.
Are you down with the sickness?
You know me.
There's a bit I'm just going to point out really quick, like on that Dorkly gaming thing I watch sometimes where they do, it's like Robot Chicken, but with video game graphics.
Sure.
Where Mario and Luigi call DLC, like it's an abbreviation of Dinosaur Land Calzones. I just want to point that out. That's all. Go on, Justin. I'm sorry to interrupt your thing for that. Just Dinosaur Land Calzones. I thought that was a fun way to refer to it.
But yeah, like Dead Cells, there's just so much to explore in that game, and it's just really fantastic. And that game still, as far as like a roguelike like that, it probably is still the best controlling, the best feeling of that genre. Like there's been a lot written about the design behind it and how they made it feel so good. Like even like programming things into when you run off a ledge, they actually give you a brief second to like get back onto the ledge, and like all the thought that they put into that is pretty amazing as a game. So yeah, it's still fun to go back, and if you played it originally when it was released, there's so much more added now that it's actually worth going back to. I played a little bit of MLB The Show 23. So it's been probably a couple years since I played one of the show games. So these are the baseball series produced by Sony. I was playing it on an Xbox because Major League Baseball made them port it to everything. So this year it's available on the Switch, it's available on the Xbox, and I think at some point they're doing a PC port of it. This is a really fantastic looking baseball game. It's fun to play. The animations are really amazing. When you're watching it, you can see the graphics and tell that it's not a real game. But if you saw it out of the corner of your eye, you would think it was a real game just based on the animations. So all the little details in that are pretty fantastic. There's probably a laundry list of things that are new. The biggest one is that there's a Negro League mode that takes you back, and you can go through the Negro Leagues with multiple different players, and it's sort of telling their story as they went through. And so they went through and recreated the stadiums and the players and what their uniforms looked like and everything at the time. And it's just like it's a really cool thing. Like it's a really cool sort of history lesson to be able to play through. And sports games are always looking for like story sort of modes, and this is a really cool one because not only is it interesting, but obviously it's shining a spotlight on an era of baseball that often gets forgotten or overlooked.
Yeah, that sounds like a beautiful way to like honor black figures in sports and such. So.
Yeah, it does a really good job. Let's see. I played a little bit of Meet Your Maker. So Meet Your Maker is, how to describe this? It is Mario Maker mixed with the movie Cube. So are you familiar with the movie Cube?
No.
Okay, so
I've heard of it. I'm aware of it.
Cube was an indie sort of horror film that came out, I would say, late 90s. Had to be somewhere like 98, 99, somewhere in there. And it's these people wake up one day and they find themselves, they're inside of this cube with other strangers. And as they walk into each new room, it's another cube. And each room has like unique traps and everything set in it.
Okay.
And so this game is you build bases out of little cubes that you put together, and then you can put traps in them. So like you can have walls that fire spikes, or you can have a floor that disappears when you step on it and you fall, and you can have like an energy cube at the bottom of that pit, and if they touch that, it'll kill them. So you're basically trying to build levels that will kill people.
Okay.
And then you can upload those online, and people try to get through, and you have to get to basically like a core at the center of their base and get out without dying. So there's two modes to play. You're building levels, but then you can also play through all these levels that other people have built. And you get power-ups from that. Like basically you get currency, and then you can take that currency and you can use it to either buy new sorts of traps and things for your bases, but you can also use it to buy upgrades to your players so that you have a different sword or a different gun and that sort of thing. I think the big issue with this game is it going to have long legs? Are people still going to be playing this game 6 months from now? Right now, there's enough people playing it and enough new levels being built that it's really kind of a whole lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And this is on PlayStation Plus for free this month. So if you have PlayStation Plus, you can download this and play it. It's a really cool game.
I'm curious about this one because I enjoyed Minecraft. When I played, Doom is one of the classic games I want to go back and play more of because when I played it, I'm like, oh god, this game still holds up, like the original Doom. So
right.
I'm curious about this.
Yeah, this is this is one of those games. It kind of keeps you coming back. Like I want to do it one more run, and they got me with this trap this time. Okay, well next time I'll know to avoid that trap because you can rerun the same level multiple times until you get it right. So it's kind of a whole lot of fun. The last game I want to talk about is the death of Sonic the Hedgehog, or the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog.
I still have not played it. I do not have any time until like Wednesday of next week.
But it's already your favorite game, right?
I have heard very good things.
So, well, I mean, Ryan, this is right up your alley. It's a visual novel where Sonic and friends go on a train and Sonic is murdered. And so, spoiler alert, but it's in the title.
I say that's literally the number one marketing that they did.
And you are playing a wholly unique character, and you are trying to solve the murder, and you have to interview the other Sonic characters and interact with them. So this has, like, obviously Tails and Knuckles, but it also has all the other weird Sonic characters in it. So it has the crocodile. And,
it has Vector?
Yeah, it has Amy in it. It has Rouge. It has... I can't remember all the rest. But bizarrely, I don't think Big is in the game at all. Which,
oh, well, forget it.
like, unless he has a cameo later. So I haven't finished the game yet because I can only play visual novels for a short period of time. I have to play them in little pieces. I can't sit and play straight through, even if they're fairly short. And I think this is fairly short.
Yeah, I think my sister said it's like 3 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, that would not surprise me at all. Most of these sort of like small free visual novels are like that. They're meant to be like a 1 or 2 sitting experience. But what I've played of it so far, it's fine. I think it does a lot with the charm of these characters and, kind of leaning into that. And, so yeah, like the alligator Vortex, they lean
Vector.
Vector.
And he is a crocodile. Thank you very much.
They very much lean into the fact that he's a ridiculous character.
Oh, yeah.
And so, in that way, I think this is a lot of fun. It's also just free. So, like, everyone should download it and try it. But I will say that other than the Sonic characters, it hasn't had the hook for me yet that, some other visual novels have had that got me more into them. But again, it's fun. So worth trying out. All right, let's move along to the news. So they killed Sonic. They also killed E3. So after Ubisoft announced they were also pulling out of E3, joining Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo and skipping it this year, they came out and publicly announced that they are just canceling E3 this year. The fact that we just have not had a real E3 since before the pandemic.
I'll say, 4 years now?
Yeah. We had something last year, but it was kind of a mess, and it just seems like this is it for the time being, at least. Like, I just don't see there being an E3 next year, and I don't see there being an E3 in the next, 3 or 4 or 5 years, really.
Yeah. It's a shame because, I feel like so much cool stuff always came out of E3. And, not that cool announcements don't come out from all these companies individually now, but I don't know. Hearing that E3 is canceled is like hearing that New York Comic Con is canceled. It's not quite as big as San Diego. It's not devastating for me, but it's just man.
It's like Christmas got canceled. I mean, if you really like video games, this is video game Christmas.
Yeah, this is San Diego Comic Con for some people.
Yeah, this is the biggest event each year in video games. This is when the new games get announced and shown off, and this was a very, very big deal for a very, very long time. And yeah, it is the equivalent of San Diego Comic-Con. If San Diego Comic-Con got canceled tomorrow, that would be a big hit to the comic industry and even the film industry nowadays.
Yeah.
And this is the equivalent of that. And I would argue that the comic book industry is better positioned for San Diego to go away because they have so many different shows now.
San Diego was canceled during the pandemic and then has come back.
Right.
E3, I don't know if it's, like you said, I'd love to see it come back. I don't know if it is.
Yeah, I've never been to E3. I always wanted to go. It was just one of those situations where, being on this side of the country, getting to LA and the expense of it. There was a time when you could get into E3 decently easy, even if you weren't a major media outlet. But just the expense of going to LA for the show that, you don't have any business reason to be there is an inhibitor for most people. We had already lost the original E3, which was the giant elaborate booths that people were building and setting up. That E3 had already gone away. The new E3 was being run by ReedPop, who runs the New York Comic Con and runs the PAX events. So even had it gone on this year, it was going to be a very different event in look and feel. But still, to see it die and to see it die this way, really with a whimper.
Yeah.
it's a shame, right? Because video games they still do, I believe, need those sorts of big events. Like CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, which E3 grew out of because video games used to be shown off at the Consumer Electronics Show, and then they got too big. They needed their own show. But the Consumer Electronics Show is still a big deal. Like, it's still important. And, E3 was still important. Like, does Nintendo need it? Probably not. Nintendo can just have their own press conference. They're sort of at the level of an Apple. They can just do their own show. People will show up. The problem is everybody who's not Nintendo.
Yeah.
Who's not Sony, who's not Microsoft. Are those games going to get seen? Very famously, Guitar Hero was originally shown off at E3 and
I remember that.
A back booth and everything that, nobody really knew what this thing was or what to make of it. And, that became a cultural phenomenon for a good period of time. Mm-hmm. And you kind of wonder, are some things going to get lost in the shuffle because of this? Some games, some new products, that sort of thing. Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, they'll all be fine. But it's these smaller companies that this is probably going to hurt in the long run. Or not even the small companies, even like your sort of step down in size companies, even companies like Ubisoft, this may hurt them in the long run.
Right.
Let's see. Last week, new Tears of the Kingdom footage was shown that showcase fusing of items and building of vehicles. I think those were the two biggest reveals in that you can build your own vehicles. You can fuse items together. So if you find a stick, you can also then find a rock and fuse those together. And
stick rock.
You basically have a hammer, and it doesn't break as easy as a stick by itself does. So the implication there was that you could build some really elaborate weapons that basically any items could be stuck together. So I know one of the things that really had people talking was they showed the arrows and you could attach items to the arrows. Mm-hmm. So they were finding, when they defeated enemies, they were finding the eyes of the enemies and they were sticking those onto arrows. And then it made those sort of seeing eye arrows. So if you fired in the general direction of an enemy, it would follow the enemy. So they were showing it like with birds that you could shoot a bird out of the sky because the arrow would follow them because it had an eye to direct it and everything. So it seemed like a lot of cool things that this could lead to. And it seems to be like that's the direction they're taking this new Zelda that, is for the most part using the same map as the last game. There's some obvious changes to it, but where they've really been spending the development time is all these sort of systems within it, which seem really cool. So makes me more excited to play that game.
Yeah.
Atari has bought Night Dive Studios. This is a studio responsible for the ports of Shadow Man, System Shock, Power Slave, Doom 64, all the new ports that have happened for those games in the last few years. Night Dive is behind that. Kind of interesting to see Atari buying them. Atari's been obviously branching out, trying lots of new software products. I would assume that this means that they may try to put Night Dive on hey, let's make a new combat. Let's make a new battle zone. I don't know why else you buy them other than for that, though. Nintendo last week closed down the 3DS and Wii U shops. So these are the digital shops on both of those platforms. So you can no longer buy digital games on the 3DS or the Wii U. In some ways, this is not that big of a deal. A lot of the software has been ported, especially from the Wii U to the Switch. Lots of those games have gotten re-releases. On the other hand, this is why game preservation is such a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of these games have not gotten releases onto other systems.
Or even, there's a lot of games that are only digitally released. They never get a physical release. So when you shut that store down, suddenly you just straight up can't anymore.
Yeah, you can never get access to it again without piracy. And so one of the things that happened as after they announced that they were going to do this is that a lot of people got to work on let's back up all these games.
Yeah.
So that someday people can just download these and play them. I mean, you can right now. You can download and play these. And, you know, from my perspective, as somebody who's very big on, like, I don't think people should generally pirate games if they have money. Like, if you have money, you can buy a new game, buy it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're flat broke and you have no money, then I don't care if you pirate a game. But like, I work, I have income, I can drop, $10 to buy the new game that I want. And so I want to support the people making these games. And so I feel like that's worthwhile doing. But this is a situation you look at and you go, well, like, you are denying people any access to this.
Yeah. That's like, even if I had money and was like, yes, I want to support the creator of this game by buying this game, well, not an option anymore. Have fun.
Yeah, and the history of video games is filled with this, right? Like, there are lots of games that will never get released again. Some of those make perfect sense. Some of those are, like, nobody's going to re-release NHL 94 again, right? Because you'd have to go back and relicense all of those players who aren't, part of the NHL Players Association anymore, and that would just be a huge headache. So, all right, we all understand and get why that works the way it does. But, there's a lot of games that just have been lost and forgotten, and nobody has an easy way to access those other than piracy. So when a company like Nintendo does this, you just look at it and go, okay, well, you're kind of telling us you want us to do this if we want to keep playing these games.
Yeah.
And I can't blame a single person for doing that. I mean, certainly there are 3DS games I missed. I never got a chance to play. If I want to play them now, I will almost certainly have to, pirate those.
Yeah.
And then there's also, like, the issue of, like, not even just going to that, but, like, stuff that's just not released over here or something. Like, if there's, like, video games, so if you're, like, a big fan of, like, the Mother series or the Earthbound series, whatever you want to call it, like, that's the only way you're going to play in Mother 3.
Oh, yeah.
It's emulation.
Yeah, I mean, that has been going back for decades an issue in the game industry of games not getting worldwide releases in a lot of situations. That's actually been somewhat fixed via digital release, because a lot of times they'll say, well, we don't think this game will do well enough in the US or in Japan, so we're not going to put out a physical release. We'll just release it digitally because we've already got the game. But yeah, if you're shutting down the digital release, then what option does anyone have at that point? So yeah, a big loss for games, I think. Pokemon Horizons. Again, this is a little bit old.
Speaking of a big loss.
Yeah,
Ash and Pikachu are done.
This is announced as the new show title. So did you watch the final?
I have not. I am not in a mental spot to watch that right now. And, we laugh at that, but really, like, Pokemon is my childhood in a way that, on the one hand, so many things are, and on the other hand, like, so few things are. And so, like, I did watch the episode where Ash and Pikachu won, and having all of the cameos from all of Ash's old Pokemon and old teammates did make me sob. And so I'm very aware of my mental health right now, and very much know that is not a goodbye that I can say right now.
This is a bridge too far to cross right now.
Yeah, that's gonna be like, I don't know. I have really good friends who are graduating this semester, who are going off to, like, do their other things, and that's awesome. I cannot say goodbye to Ash and Pikachu right now. I need them to still be.
Well, luckily you have, some 25 years of that show that you can go back and watch at any point. So you can delay saying goodbye as long as you need to.
But, it's the same thing Ryan was saying about Owl House. Like, yes, I can go back and rewatch it. And, like, yes, there's fan fiction. Yes, there's all kinds of amazing continuing new experiences. But this will be the end of the canon for these characters.
No, I just meant delay it until you have to watch the final episode.
Oh, yeah.
So you can watch some of those other episodes. I mean, have you seen every episode of Pokemon?
Oh, my gosh, no. I actually, I stopped watching somewhere in Sinnoh. So, like, there's a lot of Pokemon that I haven't seen, but...
Yeah, so you can take your time.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I stopped watching, like, when I was a kid, like, after, like, the third Pokemon movie with Entei. I think that was, like, kind of my, like... And it's weird, like, I haven't cared about the series for years, but I'm not as much sad about Ash and Pikachu, but I am kind of sad about Team Rocket. Like,
I'm so sad about Team Rocket. I am so sad. I'm just... Yeah,
Alicia's getting emotional just talking about the end.
This is my childhood coming to an end. You know, it's like the feeling of, as problematic as J.K. Rowling has outed herself to be, this is like the feeling of sitting there finishing the final Harry Potter movie in theaters. Yeah. And that was it. No more books, no more movies, no more anything. Like,
oh, well, I mean...
At that time, that was what we thought.
Yeah.
You know, obviously that's changed, but when Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out, that was it.
Right.
And then, like, a cursed child new book arrived.
Ugh.
See, I didn't feel that way so much about the movies. I did feel that way very much about the seventh book.
There was definitely a big chunk of that with the seventh book, but there was still, like, okay, I know there's still movies coming. I know there's still something to hold on to. And
I think I never got into the movies as much as the books because I'm a snob. Books are better. No, I mean, those movies are fine. I just never liked them as much as the books.
You know, the books are better. Not to be a snob, but the books are better.
I really wasn't trying to say that you can't think one version of media is better.
No.
Yeah, no, we're just
joking.
Yeah.
Because I actually agree with you. Look, when people pull that, I'm just kind of roll my eyes and like let people enjoy what they enjoy.
Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier too. It's like specific stories are better suited to specific mediums. Harry Potter's better suited to the books.
Oh no, I'm fine. It's just like when people are like, this form of media is better and smarter than that form of media. I'm like so tired. Like I get tired of it immediately.
Yeah, but like Pokemon ending, like it's not Pokemon itself isn't ending, but Ash and Pikachu and Team Rocket, like...
Right.
And, like, what's going to be, you know...
Captain Pikachu.
Captain Pikachu, cool. Yay.
I wanted Bidoof.
This is the most Simpsons, like, moment in Pokemon history because it's like Malibu Stacy, they gave him a new hat. And they're like, well, he's a new character now. we gave him a fancy new hat.
I mean, it's not Ash's Pikachu. It's a different Pikachu.
I understand. But Malibu Stacy, I don't know if you are familiar with that episode, but
I know what you're talking
famous,
about.
I can't watch The Simpsons.
Very famous Simpsons. Very famous joke from The Simpsons is that Malibu Stacy, the stand-in for Barbie, that everybody's like sort of boycotting it, and then they roll out that she's got a new hat, and all the people are like, "Oh, we've got to buy it now because it has a new hat." And so,
including Mr. Smithers, like
including Smithers. And so, like when I first saw the new Pikachu, and they were like, "Look, it's Captain Pikachu," and I was like, "Oh, he's got a fancy new hat." Like that's the big distinction for Pikachu because he's still going to just say Pika, right?
Yeah, I mean, it still is a Pikachu.
Right, like they're not turning him into
Danny
Meowth.
DeVito.
He's not going to like talk and everything, is he?
No.
Oh, Mr. Smithers, I love you.
Yeah, I am excited. It's just very bittersweet.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we talked earlier about the issue of adaptation and to think like, I mean, obviously you more than anyone know that there are going to be more Pokemon games. You're going to have plenty of Pokemon to occupy you forever. But like this Pokemon in this different medium is having an emotional effect on you. in the same way that if tomorrow Nintendo announced we're not making any more Pokemon games, would have an emotional effect, right?
If Nintendo ever announces that, I'm going to need to take like a mental health week.
So,
Nintendo, don't be stupid. They're your biggest moneymaker that could ever exist. Don't be stupid, Nintendo. Don't make me take a mental health week.
I mean, I don't think we're in any worry of that happening, but like it is really interesting to think about, this thing that is inherently like Pokemon is one of those things that has really been able to cross media, right?
Yeah.
So the video games,
the anime, the manga, the cards.
right? Like it does this extremely well. It's very portable in a way that a lot of other properties have proven not to be. So that's really interesting to think about, and to think about that we can get super attached to it in this one medium. Even though we know we're going to still have it across 50 others.
And even though I haven't watched it, like I said, since Sinnoh, which, what was that, 2007?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't watched the show in over a decade consistently. I've watched the occasional episode, and, like, I've gone back and watched old episodes, but...
Oh, yeah, when the old episodes came, like, on a Netflix, I think I went back and watched them for a little bit, like, and had some nostalgia.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Dolphin emulator is getting an official release onto Steam. So the Dolphin emulator is for, I think it's GameCube and Wii. It will do emulation for. So that is getting an official release onto Steam, which is kind of interesting. We're speaking of the need to emulate. Emulation has sort of gone mainstream. RetroArch has an official release on Steam now. So you can actually, it used to be that the emulators, the game companies tried to, even though they're perfectly legal, the game companies tried to make them sound like they were illegal, that you couldn't even have an emulator. And now they are mainstream enough that they're getting released through Steam, which, is a place to sell video games, and they are allowing software that is used to pirate video games or play pirate video games. I suppose not all emulation is for piracy reasons. Sometimes you could have your own ROM of the original game, but...
Does anybody remember those commercials like, you wouldn't steal a car, why would you steal a movie or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is exactly those.
There's a big difference there.
I also need you to know, you can really tell it's a Friday and I'm exhausted. I misread this at first as Dolphin Simulator releasing for Steam, and I was like, how are we just like chilling being dolphins? Okay.
It's Echo the Dolphin is getting an official release on Steam.
It literally took me until you said like GameCube and Wii. I was like, wait, I played Echo on PS2. And I was like, wait, that was not the word.
Bird is the word.
Let's see. We'll jump around with a few of these. Live Alive, however it's supposed to be pronounced, is coming to PlayStation 4, 5, and Steam on April 27th. So this was the game originally. This is the updated version with the HD 2D graphics. This was originally released exclusively for the Switch. It is now coming to PlayStation 4 and 5 and Steam on April 27th. This is really good news. Like, more people are going to get to play this game. Like, yes, more of this. More porting games to all sorts of different systems. No reason to keep it a Switch exclusive, especially since Nintendo will shut down their store in another couple of years, and then you'll have no way to play it.
Seriously.
Let's see. Vampire Survivors won Best Game at the BAFTAs. The BAFTAs are the British Association of Film and Television Awards, I think is maybe what BAFTA stands for.
I didn't even know they had a Best Game category. Yeah,
they added it a few years back. It's just kind of fun. This was our game of the year as a podcast that we put together. And so the BAFTAs agree with us. So we were obviously right.
We influenced the BAFTAs totally.
Yeah, British people know best. Listen to our podcast.
That's how British people know best.
Let's see. Resident Evil 4 Remake has sold 3 million copies in its first 2 days of release, making it the fastest selling Resident Evil ever. Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Those Resident Evil games just keep selling better. Each new remake, each new full release. That was a franchise that felt like it was on the edge of just dying off entirely after Resident Evil 6. And Capcom deserves credit. They brought that game back. And it's really exciting. That game is getting rave reviews, so I'm very excited to play it.
I'm looking forward to Resident Evil Power Wash Simulator.
And that would be actually pretty cool. If that was integrated into Power Wash Simulator.
Oh, yeah. Like blast zombies while you're trying to clean, like, Leon's car or a motorcycle or something.
I would not be surprised if we didn't see something like that.
Cool. I would play this. Please, Capcom.
Let's see. The Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters are coming to the Switch and PlayStation 4 on April 19th. Obviously, PlayStation 4 would run on PlayStation 5, so it's just not a native version, I guess. Not only are these Pixel Remasters coming, but they're coming part of a package that has 1 through 6 all packaged together. They are fixing some issues with it. The biggest is they're adding a new pixel font. So the original releases of those had a very kind of ugly font that was a very modern font just slapped into the game. They have went back and created a pixel font that fits much more with the game's graphics and is much easier to read on screen. So that has been probably the biggest complaint about those Pixel Remasters. So it's cool to see that they're actually trying to fix that. They're also adding gameplay toggles so that you can do things like make you accrue experience points faster. So like it's a 1x, 2x, 4x toggle that you can switch. You can turn.
Does that actually give you like more experience points per battle, or does it just make the bar go faster? You know?
I think it's making you level up faster.
Okay.
So
it's like doubling your experience from a battle or
right.
Quadruple. Okay.
I guess I don't know how it actually plays out in the game, but that's the goal of it.
Okay.
What it's doing. And turn random encounters off, that sort of thing. And then they're also adding where you can switch back to the original score of the games. So they have this new redone score, but they'll add a toggle so you can switch back and forth from the redone score and the original from the games. So these all are really cool improvements. And again,
I don't know. Turning off random encounters. Are you playing Final Fantasy if there's not random encounters?
I guess what I would say is they did this for, I think it was Final Fantasy 12. Like they went back and when they ported that to newer systems, they had it where you can like actually make everything go at 2x speed, and I think they added in greater experience points for each battle and all that. I think it just makes these games more accessible.
Yeah, no, I'm just poking fun.
No,
I think that this is going to be good stuff.
I think this is cool because like those trying to go back and play the original Final Fantasy, the original version as it released onto the NES, is probably prohibitive for a lot of people nowadays.
Well, and even you go back to some of the ones that hold up, like 7 and 8. There's so many random encounters.
Right.
Like, it's insane. So I do think this is a good thing. I'm just still going to poke fun at it anyways.
No, that's understandable. But I do think this is really cool. Like, make these games more accessible. Mm-hmm. Let people play the game how they want to play. You can still play these games the way they were intended. It's not going to stop you from doing that. But if that's too much of a burden for you to get through, then fine, play it this way.
Yeah, I like that way. And I'm excited about this because my first video game console was a Nintendo 64. I didn't really get to play like the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy, and honestly, by the point, like when I was a kid at that point, I wasn't interested in RPGs. That wasn't something I became interested in until later.
Sure.
So of all the Final Fantasy games I've wanted to play the most, I think it's of the old ones, it's 6 that I've wanted to play the most. So I'm excited to get a chance to play this on the in 2D HD, which I think looks lovely.
I haven't seen I haven't seen the versions of 1, 2, and 3 that they have done. I will say 4, 5, and 6 are games that are much easier to go back and play today. And so 4, 5, and 6 will probably very much be worth going back and playing as part of this. 1, 2, and 3, I mean, I don't know how much they've changed. 1 is a difficult game to go back and play, and 2 is kind of weird with some of the gameplay in it. VGC, Video Game Chronicle, is reporting that EA Sports FC 24, which is what FIFA will become next year.
I was like, what on earth is FC?
Yeah, it's football club.
Some science fiction stuff going on here.
That it is going to feature female players for the first time.
Nice.
In 2023.
Yeah.
Well, it actually surprised me. Like, this headline, when I saw it, surprised me. I was like, they have not had female players in this game? Like, we have the WNBA and NBA 2K and have had them for several years now. So it's really kind of shocking to me that
they're very behind.
Yeah, that this is the first time, especially because, at least as a product in the U.S., right? Women's soccer, I feel like, is more popular in the U.S. than men's soccer.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it has been held up as a prime example over the years of the gender wage gap, because women's soccer is so much more popular. You know, the women's soccer team for U.S. national women's soccer team is so much better.
They have been the best in the world.
They've been the best in the world. And so, like, the fact that a soccer game has somehow made it to the year of our Lord 2023 without featuring female players, like, EA Sports, what were you doing? Like, I'm glad you're finally catching on.
They were being EA. That's what they were doing.
EA Games challenge everything except for your gender notions.
If it's in the game, it's in the game. Except if it refers to anything to do with women, then it's not in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's exciting news. I mean, it seems like I understand there are different rules sometimes, and that, like, today, with the way they make games, you want to make the players play different. You want to change physics. The female players are going to generally be smaller and lighter weight, and so that changes some of that. But it seems ridiculous in this day and age, when you can pretty much just swap out models, that any sports game would not have women's leagues included in it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it just seems like an untapped market that you're just we saw this with the NCAA tournament. People were far more excited about the women's Final Four than they were the men's Final Four. Everyone I mean, maybe this is just me, but like everyone I was talking to was like, yes, I am very excited for this. And who's playing in the men's Final Four? I don't know. And, they were very excited to watch all that. There lots of drama that came out of that. I'm not going to sit here and say that women's sports is overtaking men. That's a ridiculous statement. But women's sports has certainly shown that it deserves to be on that same level and, deserves the same sort of display for the public. And so video games is part of that. So they absolutely should include the women in it. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog hits over 1 million downloads and is Sega's best-rated Sonic game on PC.
I mean, Sonic games aren't necessarily made for PC. They're made for consoles. Like, it makes sense that the visual novel is their best-rated Sonic game on PC.
I just love the fact that their April Fool's joke is now the best Sonic game they've ever made.
That's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time.
It's just, hey, let's make a goof. And oh no, we accidentally made a good Sonic game.
Oh no, they knew what I've said it before and I will say it again. The Sonic team knows what they're doing.
Finally.
They understand their audience in a way that a lot of companies could stand to learn from.
It took them long enough, but they...
Bro, you have not been following their social media for nearly as long as I have.
Oh, no, I haven't. I don't deny that.
It's not a matter of taking long enough. It's a matter of understanding that fans will be patient.
Well, I think one of the things that...
Sonic fans, I think you're too patient.
I mean...
Waiting for Sonic.
We all saw what happened with Sonic 06 when they rushed it out. And then, you give us you give us something to be patient for. Look at the Sonic movie redesign. You give us something to be patient for, where it's going to be good. We reward you for it.
I think the biggest thing to take away from this is Sega had a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And they were willing to take their most prized character and have a little bit of a sense of humor with that character, and it's paying off.
Absolutely.
It's not paying off in money, I guess, for them, but it is paying off in goodwill for them.
Yeah.
In this way. And I think that in that way, you're absolutely right. More companies should take notice from this and say, hey, we can do more with our characters. We can experiment with our characters more. Like doing a visual Sonic novel sounds like a ridiculous idea, and then they do it and people love it.
Have a sense of humor with your characters, please. It doesn't all have to be dark and depressing.
Nintendo, please give us a visual novel about Waluigi. I'm begging you.
But, a couple of years ago, it really felt like Nintendo might be doing that. They made the Necro Dancer spinoff with the Zelda characters. What is that called?
Cadence of Hyrule?
Yeah, Cadence of Hyrule. Crypt of the Necro Dancer is the original game, but Cadence of Hyrule. And when they did that, everybody was like, oh my God, Nintendo's going to do cool stuff with their characters. They're going to let these indie studios take their characters and do cool stuff. Just in the same way that the Dead Cells developers have done the best Castlevania in years. Mm-hmm. They did something really fun with Zelda. Not the best Zelda game, obviously, but it was a fun little side thing. This is a fun little side thing of Sonic. And for Sega, after Sonic Frontiers, making their best Sonic game in years, at least that their main team has, Sonic Mania, was good. This seems like, okay, keep this up. Keep doing this sort of thing. If you're going to give us Sonic games, if you're going to torture us as a nation, as a world, then at least do fun things with the character. Make fun, inventive.
Oh, just wait! I guarantee you, at some point we will get a Sonic game.
I'm sure a fan has already seen to that somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure that a fan has. I'm sure at some point Sega will give us a Sonic game. Because that's the way this team works, and it's great.
I think it'd be funny, if they're you know what? Just all Sonic games visual novels from now on. Let's just, we won with this, let's stick with it.
I mean, they could keep making new visual novel games based on their different properties. You could see a Streets of Rage, visual novel. You could see Space Harrier visual novel. They have a lot of different properties they could play around with. A Shinobi one, that would be cool.
An Eggman, a Dr. Eggman dating sims last visual novel.
Yes. Make a Dream Daddy with Dr. Eggman.
Yes.
Is it just all the Eggmans from the Sonic Prime show?
I guess, they're all dating each other. That's what the world needs. That's the thing that Sega could actually make and sell if they made a dating simulator with the Sonic characters.
Oh yeah, make money.
The furry community would lose their minds.
They would.
So there would be new furries.
Yeah, we'd go back to the days of DeviantArt OCs where every character just has half of one character, half of another, and their name is just a mashup of the parents.
Yeah. Have you ever done that thing where you type in your name and then the hedgehog into Google?
I have.
I have not.
And it's bizarre. People have made so many characters. And so you can type in just about any name, the hedgehog,
done it in a while.
There'll be a version. Let's see. A couple last details here. One, the Mario movie opened to $31 million is opening day. That was Wednesday, 2 days ago.
We're going tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the plan. We're going to go see it. All of us will have seen it by next week, so we can talk about it. This is exciting. This movie's actually doing well. Much like the Sonic movies have done very well financially. Like I don't know how the actual movie is going to turn out to be, but like at least it's doing well. So maybe they'll at least get a second shot at it. Even if this is not the perfect version that they need to make, at least they're going to get a second shot at it.
I'm wondering if I'm going to walk away from this and be like, though, you know what? I prefer Super Mario Brothers 1993.
Oh, I can completely see people doing that. I mean, I have told people...
John Leguizamo has been very vocal about how that movie was better in terms of casting diverse actors.
Oh,
there's things... we'll see after tomorrow.
Well, and here's the thing. I think I've said this before. I will take bombastically, like, beautifully awful films over, it was fun, any day. Like, I will take that. Like, if something's going to be bad, go all out. Don't just be like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, you'd rather a movie be interesting than boring.
I agree. Yes, absolutely.
And, a lot of movies that aren't terrible are just boring.
Yeah.
And that's actually worse to sit through than a really terrible movie that's kind of trying to do something interesting. Like when you go back and you watch a lot of the movies people label as bad movies are, they're not good, but at least they're trying to do something interesting. Mm-hmm. And they just failed at it. And like, there's something you can kind of admire out of that. And, I've said this before. The Star Wars sequel trilogy makes me appreciate the prequel films more, because at least the prequels were trying to do something interesting, whereas the sequel trilogy to me is just boring. And so I'd love to see Star Wars get back to making not the prequel movies, but movies at least trying to do and say something interesting.
Like I will take an Ed Wood's like Plan 9 from Outer Space over like the Day the Earth Stood Still remake with Keanu Reeves. A film I did not remember existed until I was trying to find an example for really bland sci-fi film that's forgettable.
Well, I mean, then you found the right movie because you actually forgot it.
Yeah.
All right, that does it for news. Let's move on to the big question. And continuing on our Mount Rushmore of gaming characters, we have Mario, Miss Pac-Man, and Ryu from Street Fighter. There are 3 of our faces already up on the mountain. We need a 4th face to join the 3 of them. Who is going to finish off our Mount Rushmore of gaming? We have some names listed here. I'll just read through what we have written down. We can obviously throw out new names if we need to. We have Pikachu, Sonic, Master Chief, Crash Bandicoot, Mega Man, Waluigi,
Waluigi,
Samus, Link, Simon Belmont, Qbert, Scorpion, Alucard, Chocobo, and any others. So this is our final shot. We've got to get it right. We've hit it 3 out of 3 times so far. Who is the perfect 4th candidate to go up on our Mount Rushmore of gaming?
Obviously Navi from Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Hey, listen!
She just says that like every
She's the tour guide.
Every minute on the minute. Till like all the park rangers working there are like killing themselves.
God.
See, I gotta be real. There is no question for me on who our 4th figure should be.
Sonic?
It's Qbert.
It's Pikachu. I mean, we don't have...
Really? Pikachu?
We don't have RPG. And, yes, we also don't have Metroidvania on here. But when, we were talking earlier about just the cultural force that Pokemon is. To have Mount Rushmore of gaming without Pokemon...
Yeah, I know, I'm with you.
But do you think Pikachu is more important in the history of video games than Sonic?
Yeah.
Like,
I think what Pikachu represents is more important. Like, Pikachu itself, I wouldn't say that Pokemon Yellow is the top tier.
Sure.
But the fact that Pikachu is the face of Pokemon.
Well, he definitely is that. It definitely is that. I suppose Pikachu can be a girl as well.
Or non-binary. Don't push gender norms in Pikachu, Justin.
Yeah, like it's got to be Pikachu for me.
See, I'm leaning towards Sonic. Like
I'm leaning towards Waluigi, but that's not going to happen. So
I have a hard time imagining a Mount Rushmore of gaming with Mario and not Sonic, as important as both of those characters were. Maybe that's
I would have put Sonic instead of Ryu, but
I would have said that Mario killed Sonic and then got to be on Mount Rushmore.
Well, Ryan, between Pikachu and Sonic, which one do you feel?
Oh God, it's coming down to what I have to say. Well,
not necessarily, but like we certainly need you to.
I would say
weigh in.
Pikachu, just because on one hand, there's a part of me it's like we already have a big Nintendo character on there with Mario, but like it's also like I feel like Mario is still like a bigger figure than Sonic for platformers, and that as far as like iconic RPG characters go, and giving like what a force specifically Pokemon is, Pikachu is what makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, it does kind of kill me. I definitely am with you, and like it does kind of kill me to not have Mario and not Sonic, especially just given the relationship between those franchises.
Not me. I think it's hilarious.
Like it does bum me out to not have Sonic on our Mount Rushmore of gaming. But I think if we're looking at the biggest characters, as much as I love Sonic, Sonic cannot compete with Pokemon in terms of
anything.
The force that it is.
I agree with that. Let me pose a question here. If we're talking about recognizability of the character, do we think that Sonic is more recognized than Pikachu is recognized?
No.
I don't know, but I don't think so.
I think Pikachu is probably... I would dare say that Pikachu is more recognized than Mario.
Okay, here, if I can help us like come to peace with the idea of Sonic not being on Mount Rushmore, how about this?
Maybe
as a countercultural
age.
figure, he wouldn't want to be a part of Mount Rushmore. That's not his scene. Does that make us all feel better about this?
Which character are you talking about?
Sonic.
Maybe Shadow countercultural. Shadow is busy setting up his own mountain.
Made of mud and twigs.
Shadow is...
and guns.
Just avoiding all of this. Let's be real.
He's in the shadow of Mount Rushmore.
Boo.
All right. Well,
I think because here's my other thing. Like Sonic, we have the side scroller, we have the platformer. We don't have RPG on our Mount Rushmore yet.
I mean, Mario's literally made an RPG.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the Miss Pac-Man RPG.
But
I was going to see if I could trick anybody with that. No,
I don't know. When I think of Mario, I think of it as a side scroller first, honestly.
Sure. No.
Or a platformer.
Yeah.
Not as an RPG.
No, that makes perfect sense. And really, Mario represents pretty much every genre.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Mario is a fighting game if you look at Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
So just 4 Marios, let's just be honest with ourselves.
Mario is a sports game if you look at Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games.
Right. No, I mean, Mario has had more sports games than, obviously, female soccer players. So.
Where's the lie, though?
God, that's awful.
He's had 2 soccer games.
He has.
And now, in fairness, there were female characters in those, right?
Let's be honest. The new Barbie movie needs to end with Barbie getting together with Mario. Those 2 are made for each other.
I think she needs to get together with Chucky at the end.
Oh, God.
All right, so Pikachu. Little Pikachu, and is his tail going to be coming out of the back of the mountain?
I think that'd be fun.
Will he have the captain hat?
No captain hat.
No.
The captain hat and the detective hat are very specific Pikachus. We are just doing Pikachu.
All right. That is our Mount Rushmore gaming. So to remind you, our 4 faces on the Mount Rushmore gaming are Super Mario, Miss Pac-Man, Ryu, and Pikachu. That's fun. They rhyme there. So that's
we got 2 M's and 2 ending with you.
Yeah.
It all ends with you, dear viewers.
So there's our Mount Rushmore of gaming. That's been fun to do the last few weeks and everything. So we'll be back. We'll try to do something new and creative like that again, because I think that ended up being fun over several weeks to do. I want to thank Ryan and Alicia again for being here for this episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening. You can always check out past episodes and more stuff that we've done at salukigames.com. We will be back next week with, hopefully, barring catastrophe, impressions of the, of the Super Mario movie. And we'll be probably having quite a lot to say about that, I can imagine. So thanks again for listening, and tune in next week.